Hello Internet, my name is Andrew Wedder and welcome to another episode of Film Editorials. Sort of. The topic of today's video is different from basically everything else I do on this channel for three reasons. One, today we're talking about a TV show, Game of Thrones, not a movie per se. Two, basically the entire thing is going to be revolving around the actual fictional universe that the movie takes place in. We're not going to do a whole lot of behind the scenes kind of conversation, which I feel like I normally do. And three, if you're not caught up on the TV show after the most recent season, Season 7, there are going to be spoilers, which I try to avoid normally on this channel, but this is a prediction for what's going to happen next season, so we have to talk about spoilers. Thus the question before us is, what is the Night King going to do in Season 8 of Game of Thrones? I think I have an answer. Okay, before we get into the nuts and bolts of my scenario, let's go through a little bit more housekeeping. First, I'm not calling this a theory, I'm calling it a prediction, and I'm doing that because most of the theories you see online about future stuff in Game of Thrones is based off of, like, prophecies in the book and or the show, and other little breadcrumbs that might be clues to tell you some big overarching plan. I don't know what the Night King's plan is, besides kill everyone. I guess that's his objective. My prediction here is really just what I think would make a lot of sense narratively, and what I would do if I was one of the directors or producers of the show, one of the things I would advocate for, just because I think it ties things together nicely. This also isn't a full-fledged theory because I don't know what's going to happen to all of the characters. Like, I have a feeling that Jon and or Daenerys are going to win. I really only think one of them is going to survive the whole series, but I don't know who it's going to be. And my little prediction here doesn't answer that question. It just gets us from where we are at the end of Season 7 to where I think we could be in a really interesting way in like the middle of Season 8. Okay, so my prediction, here we go. The timeline here is based off of the assumption that next season is going to only be 6 episodes long, and I feel like the meat of my prediction is going to kick in episode 3, possibly as late as episode 4, depending on how much drama they can fit into the first 2 to 3 episodes. Episodes 1, 2, and the first half of 3, perhaps, are going to focus on regular human drama and preparing for the army of the dead coming down from the north, their attack on Winterfell, because I do think that's their objective. The Night King knows about Bran, so he knows he needs to kill him, and that's where, you know, his biggest threat lies. The army of the dead took more than a season to walk from Hardhome to Eastwatch by the Sea, so it's not ridiculous to think that it's going to take a couple episodes for them to walk from the Wall to Winterfell. While the army of the dead is shuffling its way south and west towards Winterfell, our heroes, Dany, Jon, Tyrion, are preparing Winterfell for their invasion. They'll know that they're coming through Bran, through survivors from Eastwatch, through other communities along the way who will have fled to Winterfell, so they're going to be sharpening their Valyrian swords, they're going to be getting all their dragon glass ready, they're going to be stocking up on all sorts of things to make fire, because we know that fire kills the whites, the dead guys who have been reanimated to go kill everyone, and they even have a pretty sound strategy in place that is to kill the White Walkers, because we know that if you kill a White Walker, then you also destroy all the people he raised from the dead. To fill out the rest of that 3 to 4.5 hour time frame of the first 3 episodes, obviously you're going to have to talk about the drama with Jon and Dany being related, and both being heirs to the Iron Throne, whatever. And that's not important to the story right now. So the climactic moment of end of episode 3, maybe beginning of episode 4, is the attack on Winterfell from the army of the dead. The White Walkers come over the hill with their army of dead whites. Huge battle ensues. People are going to have to die on the good guys' side. I'm thinking Ser Jorah and Grey Worm are going to have a hard time making it out. They're in my dead pool, if you will. Obviously, they're going to want to keep Dany and the dragons in the back, because you don't want more zombified dragons. That's the last thing they need. So it's really just going to be a ground fight, I think. Jon, of course, is going to be leading the battle because that's what he does. You know, it's just regular Game of Thrones epic battle sequence, but no dragons. It's a tough fight, it's dramatic, but the plan is basically working. The fire is killing the whites, the dragon glass is killing the whites, the Valyrian steel is killing the White Walkers. Things are going well, you kill a White Walker, whole chunks of the army go down, boom, everything is coming up roses. Things go so well, in fact, that the good guys actually win the fight. Like, the army's dead. They kill the last White Walker, big chunk of the army goes down, poof, they're just standing there in the dust and the snow and, you know, gooey bits from dead people's blood. But you'll notice what's missing, and they'll notice what's missing. They didn't see the Night King, and they didn't see Viserion. Why would he be holding back? I can even envision Bran getting wheeled out after the battle and saying something dramatic like, you noticed who wasn't here, or wow, that was easier than we all expected because I know where the Night King's gone, something like that. Cut to King's Landing. Since it's been a couple episodes, I imagine Euron has had time to cross the Narrow Sea and come back with the Golden Company, and he's unloading the Golden Company onto the shores next to King's Landing. The geography of the scene, I don't know what it's going to be, and it's honestly not that important, so I'm just going to say some things, but they can move around, it doesn't really matter that much. They're both getting watched by Qyburn and Cersei, who are watching from the Red Keep, and they think things are going well, and Cersei's laughing into her cups because she thinks she's about to go stomp some war elephants over the Northmen, when all of a sudden you hear a scream. But not a human scream, a dragon scream. Everybody looks, and on the horizon there's a little dark shape coming out of the clouds. And guess who it is? It's the Night King, riding Viserion. The Golden Company and Euron are totally unimpressed because, oh look, it's one person riding one dragon. We can take him. There's enough of us. Except they don't know, or they don't care to know, about the things that will kill the Army of the Dead. They don't have dragon glass, they don't have Valyrian steel, and they don't know that fire doesn't work on the Night King. And most likely fire's not going to work on the dragon either. Like, yes, he's undead, so fire should affect him more than most, but he's also a dragon, and dragons are like made of fire because they're all magical and whatever. Anyway, they're woefully unprepared to take on the Night King and Viserion together. And in my imagination, I have Viserion dropping off the Night King basically right in front of Euron and the Golden Company. Everyone is confused by this because he's, you know, a weird-looking blue ice man, not a regular human, and definitely not Daenerys, who they were probably expecting. And the Night King just walks straight up to Euron, stabs him in the chest, and converts him into a White Walker. Everyone is shocked and amazed and horrified by this, try to kill the Night King. None of that works. The Night King pulls his spear out of Euron's chest, stabs it into the guy from the Golden Company, and he turns into a White Walker. This continues for some time, with the Night King just stabbing people and converting them into more of his army. Those guys turn around and kill people behind them, turning them into whites and or White Walkers. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but either way, everybody's turning into ice zombies, and it's going to be a bad day in King's Landing. While the Night King is stabbing people, I imagine Viserion is flying around the city of King's Landing, lighting stuff on fire. This will kill people, and then they can be risen from the dead as whites/White Walkers. I'm not sure how that goes because magic has some fickle rules here. And speaking of fickle rules, we're going to need Viserion to show some restraint, because when Drogon lights people on fire, they can blow up sometimes, and you don't want blowing up to turn people into zombies. You just want kind of lighting on fire. This point is one of the questions I have about if this plan works. If Viserion can, you know, roast people without blowing them up, then I think this plan has a really good chance of working. Anyway, so now that he's got a huge army of dead outside of King's Landing, the Night King has a strong enough force to just break down the gate. And the guards on the inside are ill-equipped and ill-prepared and not ready for the Night King's invasion, so they just stroll through. And I, again, picture the Night King just walking down the street, stabbing and converting people into his allies. They go to fight him. No, they don't. Cersei is not the kind of person to run, so I imagine her just taking a seat on the Iron Throne and waiting for the Night King to arrive, because he's clearly on his way to the Red Keep. He busts into the throne room with his army of blue-eyed ice zombies. They make their way towards her, and she tells the Mountain to go fight the Night King. Kind of a one-on-one combat kind of thing. She expects him maybe to honor the rules of civility that they've seen before, and she figures, oh, the Mountain can kill anyone. That plan obviously isn't going to work so well, again, if the rest of my theory holds true. You have a couple options here, depending on if you want to add some, like, comic relief. Maybe since the Mountain's already mostly dead, and he's, you know, super big and super strong, the conversion into a White Walker takes a little longer than usual, so maybe he has a chance to, like, punch the Night King in the face. That would be kind of a fun moment. Obviously, it wouldn't do anything to the Night King, and in the end, the Mountain would turn also into a White Walker/White. Another possibility for this scene is that if there's any wildfire left over, Cersei might have some hidden in like big sleeves or something and try and throw it at the Night King. I don't know what that would do. I don't know if there's any left either. I don't know if Qyburn has the ability to make any more. So that's a bigger question mark in this little plan of mine. But it could be a defiant moment for Cersei right before she too gets stabbed in the chest by a big ice spear and turned into an ice zombie. And now that basically everyone in King's Landing has been killed or turned into a White/White Walker, you have an opportunity for a really cool end of an episode shot, which we know is a big thing for the producers of the show. And that is the Night King taking a seat on the Iron Throne from Cersei. Like, That would be a cool moment. Maybe it can get all frosty. That would be cool. All the fire would go out. You could hear the dragon screaming in the background. Maybe you could even get a wide shot of the whole city as all the people in it rise from various states of death. That would be a really powerful moment. That would be a really scary moment. And that's basically the end of my theory. So, what do you think? Most of the people I tell this theory to, their first reaction is to say something like, oh, but I wanted X versus X in the next season. Usually the Clegane Bowl, the Hound versus the Mountain. And I point out that you still have that, but this time, at the end of the episode, or the end of the season, when the huge fight between the army of good and a much larger army of evil happens, now it's going to be the Hound versus Zombie Mountain, which just takes it to a whole other level. Plus, then the Hound would have to kill him with fire, which would be even more poetic. Do I think my theory is likely? Well, yes, because I thought of it and I kind of like it, and the people I've spoken to about my theory haven't been able to poke any holes in it. That's, I guess, where you, the audience, comes in. You can let me know what you think of my little story down below in the comments. I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I don't know what the producers of the show were thinking. The thing that got this ball rolling in my mind was, how are you going to have big battles that aren't anticlimactic? For example, we know that Daenerys and Jon are going to have a big showdown with the Night King because they're the main good guys and he's the main bad guy. We also know that the two of them are going to have a showdown with Cersei, but Cersei's plan is to wait for the Night King to attack them so that they're depleted before she steps in and, cleans up. And it would be really anticlimactic to go from Daenerys and Jon fighting and defeating the Night King to having whoever survives that battle fight Cersei. If the Night King wins, no one's going to want to watch the rest of the show because Daenerys and Jon and Tyrion and Sansa and Arya and everyone else is dead. They're like the main reason most people watch the show, I feel. No one's rooting for the Night King. At least not seriously. It also doesn't make sense to have a three-way battle because anyone fighting, you can't fight alongside the Night King because he's just gonna kill you. I did read at one point that George R.R. Martin was inspired to write these books because of Return of the King from Lord of the Rings. And in that book, the good guys have that big climactic battle with the ultimate evil. They win, and then when they go home, they have to take care of a much smaller bad guy, which is kind of an anticlimax. Which means that it's totally likely that after fighting the Night King, Daenerys and or Jon, is going to have to, go to King's Landing and then mop up with Cersei. I feel like that would be anticlimactic. You'll remember from the Lord of the Rings movies, they don't do that in the movie. They go home and, kind of everything's fine. There's a little PTSD going on, but there's no big fight in the Shire, unlike the books. It works for the Lord of the Rings novels because he's trying to tell a different story than the movies were trying to tell, and it's entirely possible, given how different the Game of Thrones books and show are, that that's going to happen in the books anyway. But the show has always gone for kind of what looks cool and what makes more dramatic sense, and I feel like my prediction fits that goal rather than the story George R.R. Martin is trying to tell, which I'm not entirely sure what that is anymore because it's been a couple months since I read the last book. My favorite thing about this prediction, besides the fact that I came up with it and I think it's pretty solid, is that it really solves that anticlimax problem. The first fight might seem like an anticlimax when they're done and you realize, oh, they didn't kill everyone, but you move from a climactic battle to a really climactic battle, instead of a climactic battle to a less climactic battle. The other reason why I think my prediction makes a lot of sense is because we've seen a similar tactic earlier in the show and even in the books. It's a matter of sacrificing a small portion of your army to get a much bigger army. We've seen it at the Battle of Whispering Woods, led by Robb, and we've seen it more recently at the Battle for Casterly Rock, where Jaime's willing to sacrifice the few number of people he has in Casterly Rock to gain a much larger target. Several times in Season 7, Tyrion and Jon go back and forth about the size of the North and King's Landing and the Army of the Dead. I think they say the Army of the Dead is some 10,000 people, and over 1 million people live in King's Landing. So if my theory works, the Night King gets an army 100 times bigger than the one he had an episode earlier. I mean, that would be really powerful footing for him, a much better position to be in than having merely 10,000 people, of people who are already intimidating and largely invincible in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's loads of wiggle room in my theory for different scenes and different way things play out. Maybe some people run away. Who knows? I don't know if this is going to happen. It's my prediction of what would happen. It's what I would like to see happen if I were in charge of the show. which, to be fair, I'm not, but, you know, if the producers, you know, want to give me a call, you know how to find me. And like I said at the beginning, my little prediction here doesn't answer every question, like, what's the Night King gonna do after that? Is he just gonna go on a rampage in the south? Probably not, because that would be a lot of dead people, but he could if he wanted to. Maybe he's gonna go to the God's Eye, which is a theory I read recently. He's gonna, like, go wreak revenge upon the children of the forest who still live in the God's Eye. And that's totally possible. I think that's even pretty likely. I just think he's going to sacrifice his army of 10,000 to get an army of 1,000,000, an army which will, at the end of it, consist of a lot of major characters that we want to see dead for real and not walking around as ice zombies. So yeah, that's my theory about what I think the Night King is going to be up to in Season 8 of Game of Thrones. Please let me know what you thought of my plan down below in the comments. I'd like to hear what people have to say about this. I think it would be a really fun discussion to have. If you've stuck with me this far, please consider liking this video, sharing it with all of your friends, subscribing here to my YouTube channel, because I talk about similar things on this channel, and obviously follow me on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. We are just going to have to wait until the show comes back for us to find out if my prediction is true or not. I will see you guys next time. Bye!